Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H Event Space. You're tuned in to Audio 101, Part 2. Today, we're going to be discussing podcasting. Of course, this is a four-part series hosted by Shure and hosted by the wonderful Russ Helfman from Shure. Russ, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you, Derek? Thanks for having me again.
Always great to have you on, man. It's always good to kick it, get a little information.
Yeah,
We love the audio stuff. It's right up my alley. I'm one of the only people on earth that hasn't started a podcast yet, but this is
I'm with
great
you.
information for me for when I finally do.
I'm with you. I'm the same way. One of the few people that do not have a podcast, but we're going to talk about everything you need to start one. So who knows? Maybe after this, we'll both end up with a podcast.
It'll be a race to the finish.
It'll be a great one.
Awesome. Russ, I'll turn it over to you and invite everybody. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat on YouTube. And if you haven't watched part one, get caught up on that. Russ went over some really great terms and just all the little stuff that you need to know with audio that you may not have already known. So Russ and John took care of that in part one. We'll drop that link in there. And Russ, I'll see you in a bit from Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Derek. So, as much as we all love to talk about gear, I think there are some things that we kind of have to think about before we can get there. So, it's things like, all right, I got this great idea for a podcast, but how many people do I want to have on the podcast? Am I going to be traveling? What does the room look like that I want to do this in? Is it, am I lucky enough to have a really nice home studio or a professional studio I can go to? Or am I just going to do this in my bedroom? So with that, there comes a lot of things to kind of brainstorm and things that we can do to kind of future proof ourselves. So, down the road, maybe we don't have to go and rebuy other equipment. So, let's start with the room, the room itself. So if you're like me, I'm just in a bedroom right now. It doesn't sound awful, but maybe you're in a room that has wooden floors and there's not much in there and there's an echo. So, for that might not sound all that great coming through your recording. So maybe we decide, um, you know, maybe we want to use a dynamic microphone, which will not pick up that room. I'm actually using a dynamic microphone right now. I'm using the MV7 Plus for anybody that is curious. We're going to talk about this one a little bit later in some detail. But yeah, things like the room. Do I want to treat my room, or maybe I can use a dynamic microphone instead? Because that won't be quite as sensitive. Right now, if I start my podcast, it's just me, but do I want to have guests down the road? Am I going to be traveling? Am I going to find myself recording content in a hotel room? Maybe, it all depends. For example, well, another example would be like if I'm going to start like a cooking show for a podcast, I obviously want to have my voice picked up, but do I want to have another microphone, maybe a shotgun mic or a lavalier that's kind of suspended over my stove to pick up the sizzling, or something over my cutting board to pick up the cutting noises and chopping? So it's just general things to kind of think about. Is there air conditioner that's going to that's going to end up bleeding into my recording? So all kinds of just general things, not specific to Shure or Shure microphones, just general things to think about as you're planning your podcast. But so we do have a bunch of options for podcasting microphones, and if I can share my screen right here, we'll go into a couple different scenarios here. So if I can share my 1 second. All right, you guys should see my PowerPoint there, right? Is that coming through?
It is coming through.
Perfect. So if we go with route number one, we're talking about using a dynamic microphone. Right here, obviously, many people watching are probably very familiar with the SM7B, which is pretty much your industry standard podcasting and broadcasting microphone. So with this one, it was originally designed as a broadcast microphone, oh, well over, no, probably about 50 years ago now. And it was designed to plug into these high-end, recording consoles that had preamps that had a lot of power in them. And, it was great. And then fast forward to, figure the 90s, early 2000s with the whole, podcasting boom and the prices of things coming down and everybody having interfaces in their house. It was tough because a lot of those interfaces did not have enough gain in the preamps. So a lot of people would go out and buy, an inline mic booster for the SM7B, and that's great. And it's a great microphone. It's still going strong. And we updated this probably a year or two ago with the SM7DB. And basically, we said, all right, well, instead of having to go out and buy an SM7B and then adding in an inline preamp to give the microphone the juice that it needs to get a really good signal into most of the, let's say entry to mid-level audio interfaces out there, we put the preamp directly into the microphone. So if you're going this route with let's just say any XLR microphone, you're also going to need an audio interface, which is the gateway to get the microphone into your computer and to get the sound back out. So with this, you can basically just use the SM7DB right into an audio interface. Same thing with an SM7B. They go right into your audio interface, straight into the computer, into whatever software you're going to use to capture that. And we're going to have a couple different examples of, I have some software that I'm going to show you a little bit later, and a pretty cool way to record and get your levels all set up, and just a really quick and easy way to get your podcast off the ground. So again, route number one is going to be a standard XLR microphone. It could be a dynamic mic, it could be a condenser, but it's going to go into an audio interface into your computer. That's basically what your signal flow is going to look like. Here, if we just take a look at the back, this is just showing the difference between the SM7B and the SM7DB, which is just, it has a little bit more control on it. The DB, since it has that preamp in there, you can have a plus 18 or plus 28 dB boost. And for those that don't know, basically what that's going to do is it's going to take your microphone level signal and it's just going to boost it up so you get basically a stronger signal going into your computer, and everything just sounds nice and clean. So depending on which interface you have, which preamp it's plugged into, you may or may not need to engage the built-in preamp with the plus 18 or plus 28, and that's something that you would just kind of experiment with. And it does have the same EQ settings that the original SM7B has, or you can bypass the preamp altogether. So if you have an external preamp, you can just bypass it altogether, and when you do that, it is quite literally an SM7B. It's the same capsule, it's the same circuitry, same everything inside. The only difference is that preamp. All right. So that's route number one. Okay. Actually, this is a special shout out to the MV7X, which is our let's call it entry level. It's a sub $200 dynamic microphone. It is part of our 7 series, so it's part of SM7B, MV7X, MV7 Plus. So it is part of the 7 series, and basically what it is an MV7 or an MV7 Plus without all the DSP, which for those don't know, that's digital signal processing. So that's your noise reduction and reverb effects and EQ and compression and limiting. That's all digital signal processing. So the MV7X is basically an MV7 Plus without the digital part. So it's just a straight XLR, no phantom power needed, no inline mic booster needed. Just plug it straight into your interface and it works great and gives you that really, really nice boomy kind of broadcasty tone that everybody loves so much. So that is going to conclude route number one, which is, again, XLR microphones. I would like to talk about our interface that we have as well. So you can use the microphones we just talked about, either the MV7X or the SM7B or the SM7DB with this interface. This is a single channel, very portable. It's about this big, single XLR, USB-C straight into the computer. It will provide 48-volt phantom power. So if you wanted to use that with a condenser microphone, it can be. The preamp in it has 60 dB of gain, which is more than enough to push the SM7B, as we were talking about the fact that you needed a lot of gain for that microphone. So this will cover it. Um, we would absolutely love it if you use this with Shure microphones, but you don't have to. It will work with any microphone from any brand as long as it's got an XLR connector. So you can plug any mic on it, and it's going to give you through our Motiv Mix software, which I'm going to do a little demo of in a little bit. It'll give your non-Shure microphone some DSP. It'll give you some gain control. You might have some EQ, but it's a way to basically combine all of your inputs into the computer into that Motiv Mix software, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. You can monitor with this, and again, there's no battery in it. It's bus powered. So if you are traveling, if you're going to do a mobile podcast, something like that, where you find yourself in a hotel room and you don't want to lug around, your whole box full of gear, this thing can literally just fit in your pocket. Plug it directly into your computer, plug it into your mic, and you're good to go. That is it. And we'll go a little bit deeper into that. So this is going to work with, again, with any XLR microphone. Okay. Um, so now let's move on to route number 2. So route number 2 is going to be USB microphones. So a lot of people like USB microphones because it literally has that audio interface built into it. So you're cutting down on the number of components that you need. So before we were looking at needing an XLR microphone, then you need your interface. Then remember you're going to need cables. You probably need stands, which you'll still need for USB microphones. But most of these come with a USB cable. We do have kits that come with stands. So it tends to be a little bit quicker and easier setup, especially for a beginner, for a novice. It doesn't really want to have to deal too much with the technical side of things. A lot of USB microphones now, basically you can just plug it in. It's all class compliant USB drivers. You plug it in and you're rolling. So it does make it a little bit easier. And these microphones, because they're digital, we're able to add that DSP into it. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes in a little bit more detail. But this is the MV7 Plus. This is what you're hearing right now. It is available in black and white, so you can see. Pretty cool looking. All right, so now with the MV7 Plus, just to talk about this for a minute. You've got USB-C. I'm not going to read from, there's a lot of words on this sheet, so I'm just going to kind of run down really quick. So the MV7 Plus has a USB-C port that will connect right to your computer, so Mac or PC. It also has an XLR port, and you can use the USB and XLR at the same time. So why would I want to do that? Well, if let's say for my podcast, I could go USB out into Zoom, and then I can go XLR into my DAW if I'm using, Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton, even, Audacity, any DAW, I can have that go into an audio interface if I have one and get 2 separate recordings that I can edit later. So the Zoom would obviously be live, and then XLR can be recorded and then re-edited and then posted online later. Same thing, if you were to use this microphone, put it in front of a guitar cabinet, for example, I can use DSP, I can use noise reduction, I can EQ, I can do all of that stuff on board, and then just send a clean DI into my DAW, and then I can run it through, more more detailed editing, amp simulators and stuff like that if I wanted to. It's got auto level mode, you have built-in reverb, all kinds of DSP built in. Another way that a lot of people like to use this microphone with both connections at the same time is a lot of gamers are using this microphone. So you can have the USB going into a host computer that might be going, where the actual game is happening, and they may be XLR is going into another mixer that's going out to a Discord or something like that. So basically, it just allows you to have 2 audio paths to come out of this one single microphone. So that's a pretty cool feature. And again, we're going to get into the Motiv Mix, and I'll show you everything that this guy is capable of doing. And And here's the Motiv Mix, just so you can see what it looks like. We'll get into that demo in a sec. But yeah, the Motiv Mix software is very, very cool. To give you a very high level overview of it, it's basically it's free software that we offer. And it doesn't even have to be for Shure microphones. Again, we'd love it if it was, but it doesn't have to be. So if you have, let's say I've got my MV7 Plus plugged in, and then I have another company's USB microphone plugged in as well, the software will see it. So I can just drag it in, and probably not going to have all the DSP for a non-Shure microphone, because our DSP is actually built into the mic itself, which is a really cool thing. Because what that allows you to do is, let's say I'm recording my podcast at home just like this. I have my settings. Maybe I put a tiny bit of reverb on my voice, maybe a little bit of compression and EQ. I can save that as a preset, and it actually saves to the microphone and not to the computer. So the benefit of that is I can now go to my friend's house to record something at their house, and they don't need to have my Motiv Mix software to get to my presets. When I plug that microphone into their computer, everything that I had set on my microphone stays there just like that. Now, if I wanted to change it, yes, I do need to download that software. But if it's very quick and maybe I just have a preset for all of my podcast episodes where I know what I have to do to make it sound good, I save it that way. And now no matter what I plug this microphone into, that is my preset that is already live. So a lot less work. So you don't have to reset every single time. So with that, let me show you how this software works. All right, so if you just give me 1 second, I will pull up Motiv Mix software, and I should say this is still technically in beta. It works great. It is very reliable, but it is technically still beta. All right, one moment. I'm having a problem getting this to share. Motiv Mix, here we go. Okay, so what you can see here, so this is our main dashboard, right? So on the left side of the screen over here, you're seeing all of the audio inputs that I have available to me based on what my computer's capable of, based on what's plugged into it. So here you can see my MV7 Plus, and you can see the levels going there. I actually have the older MV7 plugged in as well, so you can see that. The ZV-E10 is my Sony camera that I'm using right now. Obviously, I am on a MacBook Pro, which also has a microphone. I have my Teams audio. So for anybody that is watching this that might be thinking that they can use this for work, just for for meetings and stuff like that, absolutely. So you got your Teams audio. I can have my Zoom audio coming through here. I have Motiv Mix, which is basically a virtual input and output. So if I was using a program like OBS, I can have everything kind of feed through there into Motiv Mix or vice versa. And speaking of OBS, the MV7 Plus was just last week certified for use on OBS. I mean, it would have worked before, as most microphones work with OBS. But to be certified basically just means that extensive testing went on between OBS and Shure, and it was determined that this will work flawlessly and consistently. And once that was determined, it just means that, periodic ongoing tests will go on between OBS and Shure to make sure that it remains that way. So if you are an OBS user, you can rest assured that this microphone will work flawlessly for you every time. All right. So back to the software. So let's pretend I've got a two-person podcast, right? So I have the microphone that you can see I'm talking into right there. I also have my older MV7. Motiv Mix is compatible with the MV7 Plus as well as the legacy MV7. It's compatible with the MVX2U audio interface that we looked at before. And it's also compatible with the MV88 Plus, which is our stereo microphone that has a phone holder. It's fantastic. So what I would do if I was setting this up, if I'm a beginner and a novice, I download the program, again, free. And we put this really cool sound check feature in here. So what this is going to do is it's going to set my levels in relation, my levels of all of my inputs in relation to one another very, very simply. So what we do is we open this up, or before we do that, let's say I'm going to bring in, here's my other MV7. So now I have two, all right? And I'm going to mute my MV7 and we go to sound check. And what I would do is, well, I have my auto level on, so let me turn that off really quick. And we're going to go through this menu as well. But I'm going to turn off my auto level. Now I have manual, and we'll go through this in a second. But here's my MV7. I go to sound check, and I can start talking into my microphone. And I'm going to make this really, really low for a second, just so you can see what effect this is going to have. So let's pretend that my gain is really low, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the start button. It's going to count me down. And then I'm going to talk into the microphone. And it's going to see that the gain is pretty low. And after it's analyzed everything, which just takes a second or two, it says down here, gain level is too low. Suggested value is 2 dB. So I can either drag my fader up here to 2 dB, or I can just say, nah, you do it for me. And there you go. And now I would just repeat the process with this microphone. And if you had more microphones plugged in, you would just repeat the process on way on down the line until all of your levels are good. And then we return back and we're ready to go. All right. So now that we have our levels set up, excuse me, we can go into the features of the actual microphones that I'm using. Now, again, when I mentioned before, all of the DSP and all of the processing is handled on the actual microphone itself. So my reverb, whatever my microphone is capable of doing, we will see that in this software. So as an example, here's my MV7 Plus. So I click on this little gear here, and it's going to take me to all of my DSP. I purposely did not upgrade the firmware, so I would remember to tell everybody that if there is a firmware update, it'll notify you here as well. So it's very, very easy. You just click update firmware, it'll take you through, and then you're good to go. So here we have all the features of the MV7 Plus. So I have auto gain, right? So if I do auto level, now I don't even have to worry about setting my gain. If I move back in my chair, usually it takes a second to kick in, but you'll see the gain is going to get higher as I move back. If I come closer, it's going to get a little bit lower to accommodate for me being so close to the microphone. So it does it automatically. You don't even have to worry about it if you keep it in auto level mode. So just so you can see here, let's take this out. Here's my manual. So if I wanted to take it out of auto level mode, I can adjust my gain manually like this. And then once I have it the way I like it, I can lock it. That way I don't accidentally change any levels or anything like that as I'm doing my podcast. So let's put auto level back on. And you'll see for my monitoring, this is my microphone level. This is for monitoring, not what is going to output to your stream or to your podcasts or anything like that. So this is basically my microphone level in relation to anything that I'm going to be playing back. So for work, it's the other side of my Teams call coming back. For a podcast, maybe it's somebody on the other side of Zoom that I'm interviewing, or it's background music, or anything that isn't your microphone, any other computer audio. That's what your playback. That's what the playback level means on there. Then we have tone. So we can do a dark tone, which will give me a bunch more bottom end on my voice here. I can go up to natural. I usually keep mine in this kind of area, but you can also go super bright. And you guys might hear this coming through on the stream there, but I usually like to keep mine somewhere in the middle here. And you've got reverb, so you can put. We have 3 different types of reverb. You have a studio reverb, we've got a plate reverb, and a hall reverb. For me, for a podcast, I like to do I'll turn on the reverb. I'll just put maybe just a tiny bit on there just to kind of smooth things out. But you can go, I mean, you can go way big. I'm not sure if this is coming through, but you can go way big on the reverb if you wanted to. So let's turn this up. You can also choose whether or not you want your reverb to come straight through and go out onto your stream, or if we just want it to, say, for example, I want to hear a little bit of reverb in my ears for monitoring, but I don't want it to go out, that you can choose that as well. Real-time denoiser is fantastic. It's pretty quiet in my room right now, so you may not hear much or any difference when I turn this off. But this thing works wonders. It's truly amazing. When this is on, this thing cuts out HVAC noise. If there's any kind of constant, crowd noise, traffic, it'll cut some of that stuff out. And does a really, really good job and sounds very natural also. The digital popper stopper basically helps you cut down on plosives. So we did a couple things because a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people with the original MV7 said that there were a lot of plosives, which is basically, your P's and your T's kind of sound like they're popping. So what we did was we made a slightly longer windscreen for the MV7 Plus, and what that's going to do is it creates a little bit more space, and see, in between the capsule and the windscreen. So a lot of that air that would have caused a pop kind of gets stuck in there, and it doesn't come through. So in addition to that, we added a digital popper stopper, which just takes it to the next level. You've got a high pass filter, so you can cut out low frequencies. Not necessarily low frequencies that are in your voice, but low frequencies, again, from HVAC, from the rumble of a truck that's driving by your house, that you definitely don't want to come through in your recording. So this can kind of automatically cut that stuff out. And then we get to the fun part, which is the LEDs. So on the MV7 Plus, I'm not sure how well this is going to come through the camera, but you've got a touch sensitive LED screen here. So if I tap it, you'll see it turns red and it's going to mute my microphone. Right? So that's how you mute the microphone. You could just touch anywhere on here, and we can choose whether we want the light to be either solid or pulsing. So it kind of pulses slowly, or we can have it on live and it actually reacts to my voice. So it looks really cool. You've got some brightness controls. So right now I have it on max. If we turn it to low, it still comes through pretty well. Here's medium, here's high, and max. And you can create your own custom colors here. So we have a couple of presets, but you have 16.8 million colors to choose from. So if you've got branding for your podcast, or if this is for a company, you can use it to match your company colors. All you really do, you can come in here, click on custom right over here, and it brings up this palette, and I can move this around. I can choose different colors. I can choose which area I want to change. And once I have this done, if you go over here, I just click save, and it brings it back out to my mic. So super easy to set up. And these are the controls that you have for the MV7 Plus. So just to kind of compare, if I go now to the MV7, now the MV7 doesn't have some of the features that the MV7 Plus has, right? So there's no LED touchscreen on this, so we're not going to be able to change colors, so you're not going to see that here, right? You still have auto level, you still have your manual mode. So that's what I mean when I say all of the DSP is built into the mic itself. So you'll be able to control all of the features that each individual microphone has, right? Now that we have everything all dialed in and we're ready to record our podcast, right? So let's pretend I've got two microphones going here. I'm going to unmute. And what we do is down here, we've got recording capabilities. So what we'll do is we hit start recording and it gives you a little countdown. And now we're recording. So, I'm talking into this microphone and I'm talking into this microphone. And we've got a great podcast going with my invisible partner here. And then once we finished, I just hit done. And here it's going to say, it's show you the folder where your recordings are going to go to. And what it's going to do is it's going to output each one of my microphones or each one of my inputs, even if you're using, a Blue Yeti or a Rode or, anyone else's microphone, it still sees it as an input. So each input will be exported to your computer as a separate WAV file. So you'll have each individual track separate, and you're also going to have a mixed output. So you get the individual tracks and mixed output. Individual tracks, if you wanted to do some more in-depth editing inside of your DAW, you would just take those files and just dump them in and go from there. But if you're doing all of your mixing and everything right within the software, it's just a matter of taking that the mixed output and just uploading it to whatever platform you're going to go to. So yeah, that's the Motiv Mix software, and we've gone through most of the podcasting microphones. So are there any questions come through?
We do have some questions,
We got some
actually.
questions?
Yes,
Cool.
we do. Greg joining us on YouTube says, so the USB output and XLR output of the MV7X should sound the same since the DSP is within the mic?
Well, so the MV7X, I apologize, I probably should have mentioned this. So the MV7X does not have any DSP. It's like an MV7 Plus without the digital part. So it's just XLR.
Okay,
Hope,
perfect.
hope that helps clarify that.
We had a
Yeah, so there's
question
no
on,
DSP on the MV7X.
okay, so no DSP on that. Which mics have the DSP?
DSP, the MV7 Plus has DSP. The older MV7 has DSP.
Okay.
The MV88 Plus. Yeah, basically XLR microphones. So far anyway, technology is always changing, but a straight XLR microphone is typically not going to have any DSP. It's basically just plug it into your interface, your mixer, your recorder, and that's it.
Okay. Perfect. We have a question on live podcasting. If I'm podcasting in front of a live audience and amplifying myself talking so that they can hear me, how
Mhm.
do I avoid my voice feeding back into the stream or the cast? That's a good question there.
Yes. Yeah, typically you would set up what's called a mix minus, and that's basically going to send your voice out where it needs to go and keep it from coming back to you to create that feedback loop, right? And that you can actually within Motiv Mix, you can kind of set that up using the actual Motiv Mix feature, which is a virtual IO within the software.
Interesting. And that Motive Mix software. So you said it's in beta, but it's available for download?
It is publicly available right from the Shure website. It's a public beta. Um, there yeah, there's still some minor tweaks that are being made, but it is fully functional, and we definitely encourage people to download it and give it a try.
I'm
Again,
doing this
keep in
afternoon.
mind if you download this program and you do not have any Shure microphones and you're using non-Shure USB microphones, you're not going to have DSP because again the DSP is built into our microphones, but you would have gain control and you can still record and you'll still be able to use the sound check function.
Okay, perfect. And we did hear you. We heard the
You
changes, the
did? You heard the
reverb and
echo?
everything.
Good,
Yeah, we were
good,
able to
good. I'm
hear
glad.
everything. Can we talk a little bit about mic technique? I
Yeah, I'd
know,
love to.
a lot of if you have the right mic, but you're using it the wrong way. Can you
Yeah,
talk a little bit about what, proper technique for certain mics, especially for podcasting, and then
yeah.
the differences in getting closer on the mic and getting further away? And
Yeah, absolutely. And to do that, what I'm going to do is turn off my auto level here so that we can hear what's going on. Okay, cool. So with podcasts, and there's no right or wrong with this. This is what I'm going to kind of preface this with. So if it sounds good to you, then it's right. All right. But um, there is what's known as proximity effect, which basically means the closer that you are to your microphone capsule, the more bass and bottom end you're going to have. So if I really get up on this microphone here, you're probably going to hear that I have a lot more low end, right? And for a lot of people that are podcasting, that is desirable. For some people, for a singer on stage, they might not want that. So they hold the microphone a little bit further back. So you can see the further away I get, the more bass or bottom end we're losing. So if I come all the way back here, you're not going to have much bottom end on the voice, but you're still picking me up, and maybe I sound a little bit tinier, a little crispier because we're losing that bottom end. But then I come all the way back here and it sounds all boomy and broadcasty again. So it really depends on what you want. So in terms of best practices, if you want that type of kind of big bassy voice, then you want to be as close as you can to the microphone. You don't want to eat the microphone, because even with the best pop screen and digital pop stopper and all that stuff, some can still get through. So instead of maybe talking into the microphone directly like I am here, you could talk across the microphone, kind of like this. So you're not really going to lose much, kind of like how Derek is doing it right now. So what that does is it makes sure that the P's and the T's and the airflow coming out of your mouth isn't going directly into the diaphragm. It's kind of passing over, but it's still close enough. So you really, whether it's a podcasting microphone or, a shotgun microphone for field recording, I mean, you want to get the microphone as close as you can to the subject so you get the best capture of the voice. That's really the thing to keep in mind.
You
And
guys
don't
can
cup the mic.
always, yeah. Oh,
And
don't.
don't cup the
We
mic.
covered that last.
We did that last time. I think
Yeah, no cupping
figured
the
it might
mic.
might be worth repeating. I mean, maybe not so much with this kind of mic. It's not really an
Uh,
issue, but if you're on stage, don't cup the mic.
is there any? I mean, we talked about cupping the mic. Is there any? Is there a mic cup of podcast mics? Is there any like cardinal sins?
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. I'm trying to think if there's anything. No, not really. Just, yeah, don't eat the microphone. Usually want to be, two fingers length, maybe two, three fingers,
I
and then
don't
you
even
set
know
your gain.
how.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's about it.
it's not. Yeah, I kind of talk. I could give you guys the perfect test for the pop filter. All they got to do is just run back an episode of me talking. You're gonna
Yeah,
get pop filter. You're gonna get, I need the de-esser all the time. It's like, and in a lot of this stuff, it's like you don't get keyed into it until you really start digging in.
yeah,
And if you don't know what to listen for, you don't know what you don't know, which is why it's great
right.
that you guys are doing this series, because I didn't realize I needed S. And now every time I say an S, I'm gonna hang on it, because it's like you
Yeah.
don't realize. I didn't realize I needed so much de-essing until I recorded something, and then I go in and start messing with it, and now I'm like, tss, 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 tss,
Yeah,
everything's
and if you kind of keep in mind, what we talked about last time, and for those that didn't watch the last one, we talked about different types of microphones, dynamic versus a condenser, and then we talked about polar patterns and when you should use one and stuff like that. So this kind of builds on that, like if so, these are dynamic microphones, like the MV7 Plus, the SM7B, the DB, those are all dynamic microphones. So if you're like me and probably most other people in the world that aren't lucky enough to have a professional studio to record in, by having a microphone that's a dynamic microphone, it basically just means it's sensitive enough to pick up your voice and sound great, but it's not sensitive like a condenser is, like you would use in a studio where you wanted to pick up every single nuance of your voice or instrument. That part's not really necessary for a podcast where we're kind of just talking. So, you want clarity, you want a good level, but it may not be necessary for you to have a condenser to pick up every little thing, because in context of a podcast, that every little thing that we're talking about is your HVAC noise. It's your significant other, in the other room walking around. It's, the truck walking by, well, trucks they don't walk really, but they drive. Um, if it, if a truck
that
walked
slipped
by,
by
we
me.
probably, if a
That one
truck walked
walked
by,
right by me.
yeah, if a truck walked by, you probably wouldn't need to worry about the filter to be quiet. But
My wife in the kitchen doing
yeah,
dishes when she walks in, and I'm like, and I'm like, do they just hear like the shh?
yeah, that's That's it. So by having a dynamic microphone, it's not it's not sensitive enough to pick up what's going on in the other room. And here's a perfect example. Um, in the last episode, they were doing this too. I literally have apartment buildings being built right outside my window. So if you haven't noticed that throughout this entire thing, um, that's why you use a dynamic mic.
Yeah, no,
That's pretty much it.
I could touch my window from here,
Yeah, me
and
too.
I
My
live
window's
in the
right.
city right off the major Deegan, so it's like there's always noise in that, and it's
Yeah,
like I never have an issue with it, and I feel like with these mics, it's like you said, it's like it gives just enough to where
yeah,
it's like it really I can't tell you how many times people come on and they're like, wow, your voice sounds great. And I'm like, I wish it was me. It's really
yeah.
not. It's the mic. If you meet me in
I'm in the
person, I
same
don't
boat.
sound like this.
I'm in the same boat.
It's the mic, not
Yeah,
the
it's
man.
yeah, I mean it's that's why a lot of people go with dynamic microphones. That's why the SM7B is a standard, it's a dynamic mic and it's just not going to pick up. It's I think that the tagline for the mic is perfect sound in an imperfect room because most of us don't have treated rooms, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to tell, by listening to listening to you, you sound great coming through.
Yeah.
Also, that's an SM7B for those for
It's
those that are listening.
the classic.
It's the classic.
Everybody. It is. And I mean, it's like I'm one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, you guys obviously it's like you took it to another level with this SM7DB, but it's like,
Yeah.
man, I could record on this for the next 50 years as long. Well, am I gonna
Yeah.
be over?
It
Maybe not.
actually
Maybe not
it
50,
did that
40.
that mic celebrated its 50th anniversary last year in 2023.
Wow.
It's
I
yeah.
mean, it's just like one of those things where you have very few things left that are made to last and be classics and be around for a long time. It's like everything now, I feel like we're in a generation now, things are made to break and things are
Yep.
made to be replaced. And this is just I've never had an issue. It's just a
Yeah.
simple, great recipe that always works. Now we do
Yeah.
have another question that came in
Sure.
from an unnamed person on my production team. I'm not going to put him out there, who is a mouth breather.
The mouth
For the
breather.
mouth breathers out there,
The mouth
uh,
breathers.
for the mouth breathers, is there any way to filter that out for live recording or any tips that you might have for the heavy breathers?
What I would say for that is to mind your gain. That's the first thing because if you have your think of it this way. So a lot of people think that microphone gain is the same as volume on a mixer. So gain isn't exactly volume. So think of gain as the doorway to let the sound in, right? So how much of the sound are we actually letting in? And then your volume, your output volume is okay, what level are we going to output how the amount of sound that I let into that door, right? So if you keep your gain as low as you can, while still obviously having a good level, that can help. Doing the side talking, over the top of the microphone, maybe experiment, maybe go a little bit further away from the mic. Every microphone is different. So, it's not like I can say, set this to 2, set this to 3, and it's going to be gone. It's, every microphone is going to be different, but the principle is going to remain the same. So, maybe take a step off of the microphone a little bit more, mind the gain a little bit. A lot of the noise reduction that we put in the DSP on the MV7 Plus could possibly take care of at least some of that. So it's a lot of experimentation, but I would start there.
A breathing test. It's like when you did the gain test on
Yeah,
there, you just do a breathing test. Just sit there,
yeah,
breathe heavy, and kind of just. I mean, even just mic
that's it.
position, like you said, you can kind of get now. How much does the mic going to make a huge difference if you're getting a mic like are there certain mics that are going to handle that better? I know, like I recorded something and I was using a lav mic, typical lav on the collar, and I was walking and I'm like, yeah, I heard my breathing. I'm like, this sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And
With
it's like I'm not.
lavs, it's yeah.
I
With
guess
lavs, it's a little tougher because
yeah.
most of those are going to be condenser microphones, which are going to be a lot more sensitive. So with lav mics, yeah, you kind of you can play around with the polar pattern, like an omnidirectional microphone is going to pick up from all around it, so that might be tough. But if you got a cardioid lav that has a narrower pickup area, and then if you're just gonna, what was that old video, the viral video on YouTube, that chocolate rain? Did you ever see that from years ago? The guy, he sang the song, and then when he took a breath, he would go like this off of the microphone and then come back and then sing. I mean,
Wow, I'm gonna have to look it up.
it's another option. It may not be a great option, but it's another option. Say what you got to say and then come off of the
Just
mic and then come back.
pop off. Question on monitors. Greg is asking, are you using in-ear monitors or are you using speakers?
Right now, I actually have two desktop speakers. I'm not using in-ears. I probably should be. But I'm just using my MV7 Plus, and I have the IK Multimedia, the iLouds, the little ones. I'm
Okay.
just using them for desktop speakers, and they sound great. Are they coming through? Are you guys hearing a loop or feedback or anything, or
No, no,
just out of
nothing.
curiosity? Okay.
Yeah. And that's
Well,
and that's something that, yeah, we always have to check, and it's like sometimes everything will be fine when we do our pre-check and then
mhm.
things go off but
Yeah. I mean, if it sounds good, that's also a testament to, I mean, that speaker is literally pointing at the back of this microphone right now.
wow.
So
Man,
if you're not hearing my speakers coming back or anything, that's DSP and noise reduction.
that's awesome. Man, I'm excited to get playing around and download the Motiv Mix
Yeah, check it out.
software. Yeah, that
Check it
was
out.
that
It's
was
very
definitely
cool.
awesome. Awesome, Russ. It's always great having you on, man. So we got two
My
more
pleasure.
parts of
Okay.
this series coming at these fine folks out there in the audience. So if you guys, again, if you haven't watched part one, that will get you caught up to speed on a lot of the terminology today, podcasting, and where are we going in part three?
I think part three is I think that's location sound.
Oh, awesome.
That's location sound. So yeah, we'll check out we got Move Mic, SLXD portables, we got Axient Digital, we got all kinds of stuff for location sound. So
That's
that's what
where
we're
it
gonna
gets
tackle
tricky.
next time.
We're going
It
out into the
gets
weeds. This is like it's easy. You're in
that's
your
this one's
apartment.
easy.
Yeah. No, definitely. And it's like I swear, with this mic, that's the one I wish I could just bring this everywhere. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen people in the wild holding them and it looks hilarious, but it's like, man, I after hearing the
it
sound, I don't
works.
want to talk on any like when I hear myself on a lav mic, I'm like, no, it doesn't work. I want
Yeah.
want my podcast mic back.
A lot of that is it's proximity effect. Again, that's you want that. You don't want that thin voice for, a podcast usually. So yeah,
Nah, I
you
gotta
got
hold
it.
up the lie. I gotta hold up the lie that I have this great broadcast quality voice.
I'm doing the same thing right now. So I'm with you. That's what our podcast
Awesome.
is going to be back about next
Yes.
time.
We'll continue it next. Hopefully by next time, either Russ or I has started our podcast.
That's right.
We'll
We will
see.
keep you updated.
We'll keep you updated. Well, huge thank you to Russ and, of course, the entire team at Shure for hosting this wonderful series. To all of our viewers out there, thank you as always for tuning in to our free education. Check us out on YouTube, B&H Event Space, right on there where you can listen or watch this and all of our other live and pre-recorded content. That is it. That's all we have for now. Another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space in the books. Catch y'all next time.